Most of my clients come with chronic complex illness and they have slipped through the cracks of conventional medicine. Nobody's looking at them as a whole person. And most of the time, it's not rocket science. It's just somebody letting them tell their whole story. And it's often really, really simple. That's how broken the system is. So I should not have a job. I should not have a job.
Welcome to A Beautiful Fix. I'm Tracy Hill. Each week we'll dive into the latest thought gem, recharging and reconnecting with what lights you up and makes you feel alive. Let's discover your next beautiful fix together. Hey, real quick before we dive in, you're powerful. And sometimes you just need someone to remind you what's already in you. That's what human design does. It's the difference between guessing and knowing. So you can stop searching outside yourself and start trusting the answers within. I promise you they're there. Grab your free chart at abeautifulfix.com, and when you're ready to go deeper, book a one-to-one session with me. All right, let's get into the episode. Today, I'm really honored to welcome Dr. Karyn Shanks to A Beautiful Fix. Dr. Shanks is a physician, speaker, and thought leader who has spent decades inside the medical system. And through that experience, she began asking a deeper question. What if the problem isn't that we're broken? What if the lens we've been given to understand ourselves is? She is a graduate of the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine. She is board certified in both internal medicine and functional medicine, and a founding diplomat of the American Board of Integrative and Holistic Medicine. She is also trained in trauma-informed psychotherapy. Her new book, Unbroken, Reclaim Your Wholeness, challenges the cultural narrative that says we are fundamentally flawed and need to be fixed. Instead, she offers a framework that restores agency, compassion, and connection, not just treating symptoms, but rethinking the entire story we've been told about suffering and healing. She's been featured in Forbes, Psychology Today, and Thrive Global, and she brings this powerful blend of medical training and whole person awareness that so many of us are craving. Dr. Karyn Shanks, welcome to A Beautiful Fix. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I cannot be any more excited for this because I just want to set the tone for this conversation a little bit. I'm just personally so excited because this conversation, it's going to be about a topic that I ruminate on often. I love the medical system, for acute care, for emergencies, for life-saving intervention. Like I'm all for it. But when it comes to more like preventative care or lifestyle or diet or stress or nervous system regulation, it often just feels like something is missing. And I love your message about wisdom is within. So are you familiar with human design?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah, I have a friend who's very devoted. So I learned about it somewhat from her. And then as I was listening to your podcast, that got me curious. So I did another little look at what it entails.
do you happen to know what your type is?
I did it. I don't remember because I haven't really,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no, the reason why I bring it up is because when I work with women, human design, it's an energetic map. It's like a map of your energy. It's how you're uniquely designed to move through the world, interact with others, how you can make decisions that are in alignment with your energy, just so that you flow. You move with your energy instead of against it. But one of the things that I'm trying to impress upon women is to trust the answers are within. Our body is constantly talking to us. We just need to trust it and honor it. But from your lens, I love that you are looking at healing from this perspective as well. So I'd love to just start here. What shifted for you? You were fully trained inside of this system. You practiced medicine. What began to kind of feel off?
It really fell off from pretty close to the beginning of my medical training, but I didn't have the words to describe that just gnawing discomfort. And huge disappointment that I felt inside my body. Um, and I think that to a certain degree, I was even kind of ashamed of it. It's like, what is wrong with me that I don't fit here? Like, this is not what I expected from medicine. I don't know that I can be this kind of a medical practitioner. We're not a fit yet. Something like kept me going. Like I knew that I needed to complete this training, even though I was miserable in it. I did not feel aligned in it. I did not feel it was what I was going to do. But it turned out to be fundamental to my evolution because I really needed to immerse myself in this worldview, this medicine that I was being trained in, indoctrinated into, in order to eventually understand what it did well and what it wasn't doing well, and why I was uncomfortable with it, and what was that sense of misalignment really all about? Um, and once I got into practice after completing a residency in internal medicine, I was really confronted with the mismatch between how I was trained to see, not only how to see people, how to categorize their symptoms, how to be a diagnostician, and how to, provide protocols for addressing their symptoms. But there was just a foundational mismatch, and I had to start all over. That was truly the beginning of my training because that's when I was presented with real people, with real problems, with real aspirations, with the totality of their lives and how all that played into what they were really searching for in their health, their healing. And yeah, that was the beginning for me. Retraining, looking at other ways, and letting my patients sort of guide me in that process about what it was I needed to learn, what would best serve them. And I really listened. And I wanted to be in alignment with them.
Mm.
And I feel like I intuitively got that was the most important aspect of entering a relationship with a client as a physician, that I needed to be in alignment with how they defined their health, how they defined their purpose, and let that guide everything, if that makes
And that
sense.
it absolutely does. And I'm just curious, what was it initially that just felt off? Like when you were being trained and you were learning about the medical profession, was there something in particular, one thing that was just, or was it completely the entire thing fell off?
When I entered medical school, I had this notion. I had my previous experience had been in nursing. I did a lot of home nursing, hospice nursing, where I was immersed in people's lives. And it was the relationship and between me and them and their families that was the most important part of the healing process. Even if people were dying, there was a healing process involved.
Sure.
And I went into medical school with this very naive notion that was the crux of what medicine would be all about, relationship. And then we'd fill it in with beautiful science, the human sciences, systems biology, how it all really works, and that there'd be this like alchemy of all this, and then I'd be a healer. But what happened is, the first year of medical school, and I think this is largely how it is today. First year of medical school, we immerse ourselves in all those sciences, biology, human biology, physiology, cell biology. So fascinating, so interesting, so miraculous to learn how complex and dynamic we are. But then as soon as we hit second year, it was like, boom, that was all left behind. We started learning diseases. What's the name of the disease? What are the signs and symptoms? What does it look like under the microscope? What are the drugs that we use to address this problem? Um, and we never looked back. We didn't like think through, oh, this person is fatigued. what does that mean? How do we look at that in terms of their systems biology and their unique life? No, we didn't do that. And it was so jarring and confusing. And I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't have the words for it back then. But now I understand it, that medicine is a very particular point of view about what makes a human. And it offers a very particular construct of how to look at their problems and address fixes.
So you talk about a cultural lens that sees humans as broken. But what does that actually look like in everyday medicine, viewing humans as broken?
I think that the lens is that people are parts, and the history of medicine, which was born out of a time in our history that we call the scientific revolution, 1700s. And because of the politics of that time, the body went to science and to medicine, and the mind and the spirit went to the church. So this separation. And a man named Rene Descartes, who was a very famous philosopher, mathematician, physicist that most people have at least heard of, said that those things are separate, and that the body is defined by the laws of physics and behaves according to the laws of physics. So that's how we have to look at it. Not that it has any connection whatsoever to the intangibles of the human mind and spirit. So they were separated. And our medicine today was founded on that basic premise. And medical science evolved from that understanding. And that's how we're still looked at today, as parts and problems that need to be fixed, rather than this whole dynamic, integrated, multifaceted system of mind, body, spirit, experiences, that we really are. But our culture is framed on this other understanding that we're all these distinct parts. And you can see it in our language. We don't have words really that connect all those parts. We can say, oh, there are many parts that are connected, but we use a lot of words to put that idea together. We don't have a word, you know?
Yes.
It maybe self, but everybody has their own idea about what self actually even means.
And everyone's a specialist. When you have a medical need, you go to a specialist who focuses on one part of the body. And then you go to another specialist for another part, but we are whole. We're a whole human being.
That's right. That's exactly right. So even though we focus on the body as a machine and the body and its biological function and its structure, we don't even look at that part as a whole system. You're right. So we go to the cardiologist who looks at just the heart, and we go to the gastroenterologist who looks at just the GI tract. But it's a convenient way for the physician and an institution to look at the person, because then we can have this system of specialists. But it really doesn't make sense from the perspective of what people actually are. And you can't consider the gut and what it needs without considering every other part of the human system and what it needs, because they're so interconnected.
Everything is. Everything is. And you talk in your book a lot about upstream and downstream. And, when you're focusing on one organ, one part of the body or one thing, that's more downstream. But you need to really go upstream and determine, okay, great. So you're having heart disease.
Right.
But if we go upstream, then what caused that? And in your book, you talk about how you continue to go upstream. You keep widening the lens. You keep zooming out to really get to the point. And the one example that you use with, cardiovascular disease is that it comes back to systemic inflammation, which it just seems like everything seems to start there.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not how it's looked at, because now it gets to be a complicated issue. So that's not that it's no longer time efficient, because we have to spend more time in order to look at people through that more upstream lens, right?
Yes.
And yeah, and somehow our system's so broken in so many ways, and part of it is that we are now, we started out with this narrative of being many parts, many problems, but now our system is so complex from a financial perspective, from a technological perspective. It's really hard to step back and creatively redesign things so that we can look at people through that wider lens, through that deeper understanding that would help them the most efficiently, the most cost effectively, right? If we looked at people as whole in the first place, that upfront investment of time and resources and understanding would pay dividends, right? It would absolutely pay dividends. It's not how, corporate America, whether it's in medicine or anywhere else, operates, right?
No,
We
no.
got to show some kind of positive bottom line to the investors right now.
And what does that do to a
Need to breathe.
person? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you?
I was just going to say, we need to breathe.
We need that
What
breathe.
is that looking through that lens do to a person? Gosh, it diminishes them. It frustrates them. It gaslights them. They know there's more. People know there's more to the story. They know they walk away and still suffer and are still vulnerable. They know it. Yet they're told this is the way, right?
Yes.
This is the glorious fix.
And so one of the things that you do now, is it functional medicine that you offer?
Functional medicine is the basis of what I do, which is a
And
basic whole person approach.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask if you could explain that a little bit for listeners who maybe haven't even heard of that term, because I started hearing about functional medicine maybe like 5 years ago. I'd never really heard of it. It was extremely interested in learning more, was extremely interested in finding a functional doctor. So I would love it if you could just kind of walk us through what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So I call it whole person medicine. Functional medicine, maybe in retrospect, it's not the best like phraseology to capture what it actually is, but it looks at people as whole. So starting with the systems biology, because most usually people come to us because there is something going on with their health, something that is out of balance. There's they have distressing signs and symptoms that something's off, something's going wrong. And we sort of set the diagnosis aside, which is an artificial kind of category construct that we use to organize signs and symptoms, but then we forget that that's what we're using it for, and the person becomes the disease. So we want to set that aside and look at the very unique systems biology of that particular human being who's suffering. And then we want to look at how that systems biology is being influenced by everything else around it, the environment, lifestyle factors, sleep and nutrition and so on, relationships, stories they might be telling themselves that are limiting or you're not adaptive in some way, negative energy that's affecting them, everything. There's a huge, what I call terrain of what it is to be a human, all the human experiences. They all affect us on a biological level. They shift our genetic expression. They really make us who we are. So everything needs to be looked at, and not everything all at once. That can be overwhelming, but usually when working with a client, we can kind of figure out where the hot spots are, where the high priority spots are, where are some of those most upstream factors that if we address them up here, will trickle down to solve a multitude of problems. So that in a nutshell is what functional medicine is supposed to be.
And with functional medicine, do you always start with like a battery of tests where you do blood work so you can understand kind of what's going on with the individual?
Yeah, well, we really start with the story. So we
Okay.
start with the story because, and as the client is telling in their own words, because that's where the gold is. They say, and I think this has actually been shown in some scientific studies, that we can find the key components that answer the question of what's wrong in the story without any fancy tests, without any lab tests, without any technology. The vast majority of the time, it's in the story. That said, lab tests are fantastic. So yeah, I usually begin with the story, an initial encounter. We talk for sometimes several hours. I dig through all their medical records, and then we order a battery of tests to give us more information about this unique human and what may be uniquely going on in their biology that gives us clues about what's going on today.
So, Karyn, let's go back to the story because the story is a big part of what you talk about in your book. And I would love for you to, kind of explain to people, what do you mean by the story? Because you mentioned in the book that, we have stories, but disease is a story, a diagnosis is a story. So can you help us understand a little bit more about what do you mean by you start with their story?
Well, first of all, with stories, I mean, that's how the brain kind of packages information, right? It tells a story about it. We learn stories from our parents and our communities as we're growing up. That here's what it is to be a human being, and it defines everything. And then everything we think we understand and what we believe and how we've put together all of our experiences it involves some kind of story that we tell about them. When I'm talking about telling the story as a client, as somebody who suffers, who we want to begin this process of unraveling what's going on and what does this person need. It's the telling of the story of that personal experience in one's own words as one has experienced it, and also telling the story of where they want to go, what their goals are, how they understand human healing and where they want to end up. Because one, that gives us so much information about what supports them and helps them feel safe, but also what might not be working, what might be limiting them, the way they understand and have been taught to think about things. So it gives us all kinds of potential inroads to them and their lived experience and what we can do to help them feel better and help them reach whatever state of health they're interested in. And I say it that way because it really is about how the individual defines their own healing, which I can't do for them. And I can come into a encounter with a client and have my own aspirations for where I'd like to see them go, like, oh, your potential's so unlimited. And the people really need, I think it's part of staying safe. And they need to define like the next goal, which may lead to a further goal. But it's like, we can only take on so much, especially when we're suffering and we're vulnerable and we're learning, maybe radical new ideas about what healing can be. It can be very unsettling. It can be scary. And I think it's really important for people to chart their own course and set their own pace in the
Yes.
healing process.
So do you also believe that there's a lot of power to that story? I know it's informational. Someone comes in and they tell you their story and it gives you a lot of insight into who they are. But is there also just power behind those words that they're telling themselves, that they're hearing from their own mind or from their doctors or their family? Is that part of it as well? Just understanding the power behind our thoughts and our words and what we believe and what we're telling ourselves?
Absolutely. One, the power that that the story can have to both support us and limit us, but also putting all the elements of the story together. Like they tell their story. And then the first thing I do is I tell that story back. And I tell that story back first as I directly heard it to make sure I heard it correctly. And then I tell the story back in terms of how I see all the elements of the story they've told, how I see that coming together and connecting as perhaps an even like not higher as in better, but a more sort of cohesive story about what may be going on, like connecting dots that they may not have thought to connect. Like they do a timeline for me, birth to present, all major life events and health events. And in that process, they begin to see how health experiences often followed right on the heels of something devastating or some major stress. And they begin to kind of connect those dots that those are all connected. And then that gives us insight into directions we can go that they may have never thought of before. So it is power. It's that kind of knowledge is incredibly powerful for people and empowering. It helps them, like, they feel hopeful for the first time in a long time.
Yes.
And
So,
that's incredibly powerful.
and I'm curious, how is functional medicine perceived within the medical industry? Is it embraced, or are you guys a little bit of an outlier to the rest of the medical industry?
We are outliers. I've heard outright criticism and condemnation from like well-known influencer physicians in the more conventional space. I've heard them say things about functional medicine that shows me how they misunderstand it. Conventional medicine is the narratives within it are so tightly held to by the institution and the individuals within the institution. It's a hard nut to crack. I think it's growing though. I think, and I've never received backlash from any of my conventional colleagues. If anything, what I've heard is how grateful they are that I take the time to do what they don't have the time to do and what they often don't have the interest to do. Okay, good. Someone's looking at the whole person here. So I think there are doors that are opening, and I think people on both sides are beginning to see how we can merge, we can come together. More hospitals have functional medicine departments. So the more complex people or the people who are really only interested in preventive care, they want to learn how they can really optimize their health and not just respond to problems as they come along. So we're seeing a growth. We're definitely seeing a growth. And functional medicine, in terms of the practitioners who train in it, become certified in it, has been growing since its inception 25 years ago.
And my insurance friends, are they starting to open up to the concept of functional medicine?
For the hospitals that's a really good question. And I don't have like the most up-to-date answer. I would say for the most part, no, because they don't understand the necessity for spending time with people. They don't get that, and they're not going to pay for it. But there are, like, Cleveland Clinic has a functional medicine department. I have no doubt they've worked out something but I don't know the detail with insurance. I don't know the details of that. But I suspect that most people who use that department are coming in and there's either a membership or there's, it's fee for service, cash payments.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is the relationship like an either or relationship, or is it an and? Can someone be interested in learning more about the whole picture of their health and come to you and continue working with their doctor? Or if someone receives a diagnosis that is very serious, can this be complementary to, them working with their specialist?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We need our specialists, and we need conventional Western medicine to
Sure.
respond to our life-threatening acute problems. 100%. That it's a genius system for that.
Yes.
It's not good at everything. It's not good at the rest. So we're really a perfect fit, and it should be a beautiful, harmonious fit.
What has to change for this to become more mainstream, where someone like me who would love to have a functional doctor and learn about preventative measures for health could go to them and it's covered by my insurance and my doctor, you guys are partnering together. Will we see that in my lifetime? Do we think that the industry is moving in that direction?
Feel so cynical when it comes to insurance companies
I
really
know.
running the show and
Yeah.
about the bottom line. Their profits are in the multi-trillions of dollars, and they are largely unregulated. It is the most bizarre. I mean, when you have billionaires in charge of things, the power and the influence and the connections there to maintain that structure so that they stay rich. It's it's it feels impossible. I know it's not. And I also hate to put all the responsibility on the shoulders of people who want that kind of care, because so often they're sick and vulnerable and exhausted. And why should they be in charge of telling the great system of medicine how it should be behaving? In fact, that may be the most powerful thing that can happen, is that people they create their team. They've got their specialists that they need, and they've got their functional medicine docs and other
Yeah.
types supportive healers. And they do that because that's what they need. And they're expressing their sense of agency about getting their needs met. And over time, it will be an undeniable force to be reckoned with, that there are all these people demanding this kind of care, and that it will be profitable, particularly as it saves, God, probably billions of dollars long term if people are treated in this more preventative way. But we need corporations with financial models that are that insightful to look 10, 20, 30 years down the line. It's not how they operate, which is
No.
unbelievable to me. It's like, I really don't get that.
So, Karyn, why would someone come to you? Like, if someone's listening to this and thinking, this is interesting, I hadn't really heard about functional medicine, I would like to look into it. Can anyone come to you, regardless of their health? Or do you have to be primarily well to start with a functional doctor? Or maybe you have a little health issue. Could someone who has a major diagnosis
Yes, that's
go to?
most of my clients come with chronic complex illness, often very serious illness, and they have slipped through the cracks of conventional medicine because of the way they're viewed. And because of the model in which that care is practiced, when there's, not enough time, and there's all the specialists, and nobody's looking at them as a whole person. No one's addressing, their nutrition. Nobody's looking at the lifestyle factors that play so profoundly into why they're sick in the first place. And most of the time, I call them chronic complex illness, but most of the time it's not rocket science. 99.9% of the time, it's just somebody letting them tell their whole story, looking through all the tests and such that have been amassed over the years, and putting it together in a cohesive way. And it's often really, really simple.
Mm.
That's how broken the system is. So I should not have a job. I should not have a job. I also I get folks though who they just want to thrive. They want to optimize their health. They may have some, vague issues. Everybody needs help with nervous system regulation these days. Everybody's burned out and exhausted and overwhelmed, in some way. And, and it hurts. And we all need help with that. I feel like that's the number one part of my job, is to be a container of safety and help people become that for themselves, because that's where healing starts.
Karyn, I'm just smiling because I just was on a call about a week ago, and I said, and I'm not trained with nervous system regulation or any of that, but I said, I feel like one of the number one things that people need to focus on is regulating their nervous system. Like, I'm going to hang my hat on it. I think
Yes.
most of us, and you talk about a lot in your book, just need to feel safe. And I think we think of like someone lurking outside of our house kind of safe. Like, it's not necessarily that. There's so many different layers of what that might show up in your life when you don't feel safe. It could be procrastination. It could be not doing the thing that you need to do but I feel like if we started our podcast today with just breathing,
Exactly.
it just centers you. It makes you just present. It tells your body that you are safe. It's amazing. So I agree. But I did want to ask you, going back to what if someone is on just a ton of medication? Like they have been doing the traditional, conventional, system, and they now have 10 to 20 different drugs that they take. How does that work when they come to someone like you? Can you wean them off of that? Do you work with them?
Work with them. And my first strategy isn't to just rip people off their medications. Those medications are in place for some kind of reason. They may be providing protection. They may be providing some kind of symptom relief, which has been important to the person. If there are medications that are just absolutely unnecessary, are causing more harm than good, that would be more of a priority to get off of those. But, slowly, as we address root causes and upstream causes, um, people don't need a lot of their medications anymore. And it doesn't mean they won't be on any. I mean, sometimes when somebody's had, for instance, autoimmune thyroid disorder for a long period of time, they really don't have a lot of viable thyroid left. So they're going to need to be on thyroid hormone.
Sure.
Likewise, women in perimenopause and menopause benefit hugely from hormone replacement therapy. And we could say those are drugs, or we could just say those are hormones, and this is hormone replacement therapy. And this is really supporting every part of us. It is, and it's part of our our safety wisdom has to do with hormones and the interplay of hormones in our neurological, biological safety impulses. So those are just a few examples of when long-term medications are really powerful and supportive.
And you talk about in your book the beauty in illness that, it could be a calling in life. It's not necessarily this time it's going to be a quick fix, but it ends up creating a change in your life that is more lasting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's such a common experience, and it's not something I would ever say to somebody up front when they're suffering, because nobody
Sure.
wants to hear that this
No.
is purposeful when they're hurting. But in the process of healing, of learning, of making the connections between life experiences and past traumas with present illness and dysfunction, and gradually learning what one needs to heal, and then really beginning to experience that in their lives. I seldom have anyone who doesn't say, this has been the best thing that ever happened to me. This was so horrifying and painful. It caused me so much suffering, whether it was cancer or an autoimmune illness or whatever. But I have learned so much, and I am in a place now that I never imagined was even possible. I'm a completely different person. I have a different perspective. I hear that all the time, and I can say that myself.
Same with me. I have 4 sons. 3 of them were born with life-threatening food allergies, which the doctor said will turn into asthma, which, eczema, like the whole thing. And that was really tough for me because I used to, as a little girl, something would be wrong. Yeah, I'd go, they'd give me the pink bottle of medicine that tasted like candy. I loved it. In 10 days, it was all gone. And when my sons were diagnosed with these things, I was like, great, well, where's the pink bottle of stuff that will take this away? And they were like, oh, no, this is chronic. They will have this forever for the rest of their life. And it just, that story was put on us. But I will say, going through that journey of all of their different allergies, the way I ate, the way I was used to food had to completely shift. I didn't know, how can you cook without milk, without cow's milk back then? It just seemed so foreign. And now I'm in this world of, all these alternatives. So there can be, when you step back, a little bit of a gift to these things, but I know it can be hard to hear when you're first getting that diagnosis.
Absolutely. And sometimes the gift is profound, because you have to learn things like, I need to pay more attention to myself. I need to create more space. I need more quiet. I need more
Mm,
rest. I need to sleep more. And those are really hard things to try to fit into a life, right? They're hard
yes.
things. It's hard to be at rest and be quiet when we're trained that what we do is what gives us our value. So it's
Yes.
wildly uncomfortable sometimes it just feels so antithetical to how we were trained. Um, but once we get comfortable with that, we realize that it opens up the whole world to us and opens up our own wisdom. Those are miraculous things to learn about.
Yes. And how do we restore personal agency without slipping into self-blame? On one spectrum, it's wonderful to think that you can heal yourself and that the wisdom's within and you have a say in this and you're in control. But the other side of that, when you're first being diagnosed or you're going through an illness, it can feel almost like weight and pressures. You know, I I have to figure this out versus just going to someone and saying, listen, fix me, help me. So what would you say to that?
That is like such an interesting thing to think about because it's so true. It's like, yeah, agency sounds great,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We acknowledge our own needs. We identify our needs. We honor them. We value them. And then we go out into the world and we ask for what we need. That sounds so simple, so great, so empowered. But you're right. When we're sick, when we're vulnerable, we're so much more apt to like that just feels like total freaking pressure. Or
Totally.
or we become so vigilant, so hyper vigilant like we create this space of like danger within our own bodies because we're always awake, always on the alert, always trying to control everything, right? So
Yes.
those are the dangers. So it's I think like when I'm working with people, I'm well aware. I mess this up all the time, but I am very aware of how important this is. But it's to sort of just gently um I was going to say gently coax agency, but it's more like gently suggesting agency or waiting until they come up with it on their own and it's just like, wow, look what you just did. Because people will get there without being hit over the head with it. So that is such a good point.
And I think the ideal situation is a partnership because when I was that young mom with four boys, three of them with these allergies, my whole world turned upside down. I was so stressed. I accepted, the diagnosis and I understood that it was going to be chronic, but just dove into every book I could read. I had ointments and tinctures and tea baths, and it was stressful. And I felt very alone because when I would go to the doctor, they would only talk to me about their world from their point of view, their perspective, and anything that I was bringing in about natural remedies or diets, it was just like, meh. So I would go home and felt so alone. So to me, the perfect situation is a partnership where I can partner with my doctor, respect what they're telling me. They know way more than me, but then I'm bringing a piece of it that, I have learned or that I'm curious about, or here's what I've been finding from my lived experience. And we work together versus it being an extreme of one or the other.
100%. And that's a really good example of what I call medical gaslighting, where the doctor who's practicing evidence-based medicine, meaning it's based on a question that was asked in a scientific way and has become a part of the scientific literature. The outcome has become part of the scientific literature. Well, haven't asked all the questions yet, and so science is limited based on what it's actually looked at, the questions that have been asked and not asked. But as you say, you're the expert on you and your little boys, 100%. So to be told, or even just to have it dismissed or just have no response when you bring up the things you've learned, that's gaslighting. And that's the arrogance of medicine. That's the arrogance of lots of institutions who think they have the kind of the corner on their particular type of expertise.
And to some degree, I understand it. They go to school for such a long time. They're these brilliant minds. I understand that. I'm this mom who comes in, and this has been my world for 10 minutes. So I get that. But then when you understand that, nutrition is something that they maybe take one course in, you can start to see the limitations. And I'm surprised at this point that they don't even see the limitations in their own industry.
Correct.
But maybe
Right.
we'll get
You're
there.
right. Nutrition is still, if there's a course, which
Yes.
if nutrition is literally the building blocks of all the infinitesimal number of chemical reactions going on in our body at all times, it should be like we should spend years studying nutrition, right?
But we don't. When my mother-in-law, who passed, it'll be 2 years in March from cancer, I was taking her to her appointments at the University of Chicago. And toward the end, I was taking her to her appointments, and I would get so frustrated listening to her doctors, but I held my mouth because I was there for her, and I wanted to be her support. And she had this wonderful relationship with her doctors, and they were this amazing staff. And I would just sit there. But I remember at one point asking them about diet. Is there just anything, she had lung cancer. Is there anything that is really supportive of the lungs, where while she's going through these treatments, maybe it's helping them? It's just good food to bring them back, or the reverse. Is there anything that she should not be eating that, cancer loves? Like we've always heard about sugar. This doctor looked at me with so much irritation and anger and disgust. And because I said, should she be starving the sugar? And she turned to my mother-in-law and said, don't you starve yourself. You need nutrition. And that's not what I was saying. Of course, I wasn't suggesting to starve herself. I was saying, should she create an environment in her body that is not conducive to cancer? That's all I was trying to get. But she was like, you eat what you want. And she shut me down and moved on.
I know. I'm sorry that I hear those stories all the time, and it never fails to just make me sigh. It's like, that's just pure arrogance, and there's no justification for it. It may not be in her skill set, but you know what? She could admit that. Oh, those are really good questions. That's not in my skill set, but here's someone who might be able to help you with that.
Absolutely. So how does someone tap into their inner healer who knows what to do? What does that look like?
Good. Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. And it's somehow creating the space for listening, creating the space for feeling, for, what does my body do when I'm faced with this question? If one's pondering a question, for instance, how does it feel in my body? Does it feel like a yes or a no? Or one person I heard a life coach frame it as, do I feel a warmth? Do I feel cold? Do I feel a little spark? Do I feel a little shut down? The body speaks in really, sometimes in really subtle ways, or maybe they're not so subtle, but we're not trained, we're not taught in our culture to pay attention to what our body is saying. We're not taught our body has a language at all, right?
That's right.
Our brains have language, so this is where we're focused up here, but we're not taught about the body and its gut feelings, its instincts, its intuitions, and just the sensations that it's having all the time. We're disconnected from that. And that's a huge part of how we're disconnected from ourselves, which I think in part relates back to that whole cultural narrative of here's the body over here and the mind, spirit, all the intangibles of being a human are over here. And the body's more important. And what's physically true is more important. What can be proved by science is more important, which is, I think, the bias in our culture. And we lose touch with our bodies. So it's beginning to tap in, beginning to just be present with the body, And I think we can do that in a variety of different ways. For some people, it might be sitting in meditation and just being quiet. It might be journaling and exploring the thoughts and kind of putting words to those sensations and feelings. For others, it's walking or, working out or puttering, being creative, creating something. I love to like decorate my house in like even little way, like rearranging plants and things. And it gets me in my flow. So whatever can get people in their flow, especially if it's if it's a joyful flow, I think is a way words can pop out, answers can pop out, clarity around, what one is feeling and experiencing can pop out. So there's no like single recipe for exploring that, but you do have to create some kind of container to and intention to receive those messages of wisdom. And it might help to have
Yes.
guidance, like have a coach or a therapist who, helps you with that. It's
Yes.
like learning a whole new language.
It, it, and that's what when I guide women through their human design, that's what I tell them, that this is a whole new way of looking at your world. We have not been taught to think about ourselves. We know that we're energy, everything's energy, but we don't think about our energy. So I always ask them to explore and experiment with it because it's not going to be instant. Our bodies are always talking to us, but we have to get still and honor that, because a lot of times we'll dismiss it. Like, I had this gut reaction, but we don't give it the same weight as what our mind is telling us. And I'm
Right.
saying, lead with your body. Let's
Right.
drop out of this mind thing and lead from your body.
Yes, I agree with you. And it may also take a lot of time to
Yes.
cultivate that relationship. That's okay. I'm going to give it all the time it needs because that's what I trust. This is who I
Right.
am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, before we go into our speed round, I'm just curious, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share? Or is there one message that you really want our friends listening to hear today?
What would I like you all to know that we haven't directly talked about yet? Oh, just, if you're struggling and you have the slightest inkling or impulse or understanding that there's more to be had to support you, I just want you to trust that and ask your body what your what do I need to know? What do I need to do? I like to write that down in my journal, put a period next to it, and then close the book. Set it so it's been dropped in the question, and I set it aside. Sometimes the answer comes very very quickly. Sometimes it pops up at unexpected times.
I love that advice. So I do remember that reading in your book that you were saying when you ask those questions, to give it time. It might answer you immediately, but probably it won't. But give it time and see what shows up, what kind of answers you do receive. I think that's so important for us to start thinking of having this relationship with ourselves, with our body in this way.
And why would our body trust us to give it an answer if we've never paid attention to it, for crying out loud?
Yes.
Keep asking and build that trust, because that is a real tangible thing. I've experienced it in myself. So just keep building that relationship. Come in and ask what do you need? What you need? What can I do? What can I do for you?
Absolutely. It's almost like we have to start dating ourselves again. We've been mistreating ourselves a little bit. It's been talking to us. We've been ignoring it. We have some making up to do. We have to let them know,
Yeah.
listen, I'm sorry, but I'm going to start listening to you now. And what I love to tell women is, again, experiment with it. If your body lights up over something and tells you that this is what it needs or this is right for you, go do it and see how that turned out. Do your own little scientific study. Did that work out well? What about if your body tells you, no, I don't, and you do it anyway? Did that work out for you? Like, start seeing it for yourself. How does it work?
Right. That's right. Look at everything as an experiment. Life school, I like to call it. It's all life.
Yes.
And sometimes we
That-
fall flat and we're wrong. We did the wrong thing and we knew it. How
Yes,
did that work out?
that's right. and learn and make a different choice.
Yes. Yeah.
So what makes you come alive?
Everything. I mean, thinking and talking about what we're been talking about here,
Yes.
being out in nature, watching the changes of the seasons, which is just starting to trickle in right now. I'm in Wisconsin. So it's like the earliest little signs, the birds, a few little birds are coming in that aren't here during the winter. Um, uh, Connecting with people on a real level, on a real genuine level, even if it's like the grocery clerk or whoever, and we have like maybe a 2-second few sentences of, but it's so authentic and real, and it just feels so connecting. Um, yeah, it's really the simple things like that that make me come
The
alive.
simple. What about a song that instantly shifts your energy?
I thought about that, and because you asked that on your previous podcast, and I like, it can, there are so many, and
I know.
like, Kendrick Lamar comes on in the gym working out, and like, he's like so authentic, right? His vibe is so authentic, and I'm like, God, I love this guy and his poetry. It could be the oldies, like, Journey, Heart,
Oh,
Foreigner,
God.
all the goodies, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I cannot even pick out one song.
Mm-mm. I get it. Music is so powerful.
Yes.
What about a book that cracked you open?
Right now I'm reading The Gene Keys.
Stop it.
It's so powerful. And I just read like one chapter at a time, usually at the end of my meditation. I feel like I'm downloading something, and sometimes I don't understand what he's saying, but the frequency of it is so powerful that I just let the words walk over me. And I know I'll read it again. But
Okay, so now you're just flirting with me, Karen. Yes,
Oh,
the
yeah?
Gene Keys. The Gene Keys is the cousin to human design.
Oh,
They are one and
okay.
the same. So in human design, we have what we call gates, but they are called gene keys. And he goes much, much deeper into those gene keys. And yes, when you read the gene keys, it can be very heavy. But that's why he has something called contemplation. He believes in just sitting with this and contemplating and thinking about it because it tells you about what the beauty of the gene keys is there are levels to us. There are shadows. When I first learned about my human design or my gene keys, I was in the shadow of my chart completely. I was completely out of alignment with my energy, and I could see that's me. I'm living there. But the beauty of that is then I can see where if I just get in alignment and work with my energy, I can go to the gift. And then you can see what the gift is. And then they have the city level, which is like almost like enlightenment, but it shows you the potentiality to your life of where you can go. You can go from your shadows to, to your gift, to that, the ultimate. So,
And
oh gosh,
back and forth, right? We can move back
yes,
because we're human.
we're human.
But his language is so exquisitely beautiful. And
Yes.
sometimes I'll read a passage and I'll be like, oh my God, that is exactly what I'm working on right now. Or this is my life. And others of them I don't relate to quite as strongly, though my
Right.
never rejects any of it. It's like all beautiful. So
Ah,
that's
I love it. And there's no good or bad in any of this. It's just all information.
right.
Well,
It's human
so
evolution. Yeah.
later on, you're going to have to let me know what your human design is. I'm just going to, I just have to know at this point.
I'm actually, well, I was on your website and it gave me the info. And did I take a screenshot of it?
I'd love to know it. And it's killing me.
I thought I took a screenshot, but you know what? I'll send it to you. How about that? It'd be
Yes.
interesting. Can you guess what I am? Is that something, like in astrology, you can say, you're a Leo sun with a Pisces rising or something.
Yes. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I will ask for someone's chart because I kind of feel it. I don't know if I would know for sure the type, but it'll be interesting for sure. I will definitely circle back with you.
I can't get you to guess, or that's all right.
If I had one, if there was something that was coming to me, You know what, though? I will say this, you're probably a generator of some sort because 70% of the population are generators. So most people that I do sessions with, they're either a generator or manifesting generator. But we'll see. What about your favorite indulgence?
Indulgence?
Yes.
Wow. I think my favorite indulgence that I indulge in regularly is I just sit like I have a little meditation chair sitting by these big windows looking out over the prairie and old oak trees. And I kind of let go of the structure that I thought my meditation would take. And I just stare. I've got my dog in my lap, who I'm just petting and he's purring. And I just yeah, I just lose myself over the prairie. I see the
Oh,
hawks fly in. We see the
yes.
deer go by.
Yes.
That is like a beautiful indulgence that I need.
Oh, I love that. What's one thing that always reminds you how beautiful life really is?
Well, again, I think that brings me back to nature. I could also say my children. I could say my dogs, but nature is so perfect.
Yes.
And this morning, it's the end of February. It should be like still like so wintry. At my bird bath fountain, which is flowing, I try to keep it flowing through the winter. Hard work.
Really?
Yeah. Um, there were bluebirds.
Mm.
Then came in a big flock of robins. Started bathing. Like 6 robins are in there bathing. Then the cedar waxwings, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? What are you? I'm so glad you're here.
Yes. Well, the weather's been so odd. They're probably all thrown off. I'm telling you, birds are incredibly underrated. I became a bird person back in 2020 when I left my corporate career. I just would sit in my backyard and stare at them and really get to know which ones are there and showing up. And I did the whole bird bath. I didn't know you could do it. I'm in Northwest Indiana, so we're kind of the same climate. I didn't know
Yeah.
you could do that
This is
over the winter.
bird bath fountain, so it's
Oh,
moving,
yes.
and that's
And it,
all. But there,
okay.
when it gets below, if it gets into single digits,
Yes.
we have to like add hot water to keep a space open for it. It's a
That-
lot of work, but the birds come.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Well, Karyn, before we wrap, where can people find you and follow your work and grab a copy of Unbroken?
Unbroken is available at all the major retailers. It's in print, audio, and ebook formats. I narrated the audio. That was a lot of work. And my website is my hub, KarynShanksMD.com.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. And the last thing is this year I've started something new. It's a Passing It Forward love chain. And so off air, I've started asking each guest to leave a love note for a future woman coming on the show. Just a little permission slip, a reminder, a piece of wisdom. And the last guest that I interviewed, Carrie Fabrice, who is a leadership coach, speaker, and author who helps high-achieving women rethink what's possible in both work and life. She wanted to share this. You have all of the answers within you. So trust your beautiful soul and the path it is wanting to put you on.
Beautiful. Perfect.
I was like,
Mhm.
it's
That's
so perfect.
beautiful.
We've been talking about trusting ourselves and the wisdom within, and she
Yes.
didn't even know who she was sharing that with,
Yeah, I
but
love
it seems very.
Mhm.
So to everyone listening, before you leave today, just consider this. What story have you accepted as fact? And what might change if you asked a better question? If you believed a better story, or if you invited in some space for new answers to appear. And until next time, keep getting high on life, one beautiful fix at a time. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to A Beautiful Fix. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a quick review to help others find us. And if you'd like to share your own beautiful fix or join me as a guest, reach out anytime at tracy@abeautifulfix.com. Looking forward to next time.